Yeah, all right, so spring practice, I mean, there's debatable, right? Coaches do it because everybody else does it. They do it because they feel like they have to. People would look at them funny. Do you think coaches like spring practice, if we're being completely honest?
I think that they like the opportunity to refine some technique and fundamentals. I don't think it's necessarily one where they feel like they can go in and install their playbook or anything like that and start figuring out the identity of their team. That's impossible, and I think any coach who tells you that is lying through their teeth or at least trying to convince themselves. A lot of these guys just want to be able to come in and work with the players and refine things and reshape their bodies. That's what spring football is all about, and for that matter, nowadays what it's really turned into, especially when you get all these transfers in and you're trying to figure out a way to fit them in, but also just refine them in the way that they would fit in your program.
I'd like to reshape my body, Brandon. I'll just be honest with you.
Well, Brandon Marcello could help you with that because he has done just that.
Yeah.
Just that.
I just knew he would laugh.
Yeah.
I couldn't resist.
You can follow Brandon on Twitter at @BMarcello, National College Football reporter for 24/7 Sports. All right, so you said generally speaking you're not trying to install a playbook. Does it feel like that's different when you have new coordinators in particular in? And I'm thinking about two examples here in the state of Mississippi. Pete Golding comes in as now the defensive coordinator for Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, and it's going to be a different defense than what they did. And then Mississippi State, obviously no Mike Leach. You've got Zach Arnett and a new offensive coordinator coming in. Does that make spring more important for those two schools than it would in a normal year?
Yeah, certainly. Anybody that's coming in and you've got to change philosophy or, for that matter, as you said, change the playbook. I do think that a lot – I try to get in the weeds with some of these coaches, and they won't tell you sometimes, but you try to figure out, like, how much, language and terminology is carried over from the previous regime just to make it a little bit more simple for the players and, for that matter, the coaches trying to teach things. But a lot of these coaches aren't coming in and installing even 75% of their playbook. They're coming in doing some base stuff, some base principle things to get these players familiar with it, And then also there's a lot of situational ball that goes into all this stuff. And you're seeing it now even more in these spring games. It used to be it was all about entertaining fans and everything, but a lot of them now, they just go out there and run situational stuff like they would in a practice. In the team-on-team drill stuff. So they're just trying to get as much on tape as they can to learn about the individuals and how they can mix and match personnel so that when they get into August, they can kind of go out there and start actually installing things and get a better feel for what they could potentially become as far as an identity.
Brandon, Mississippi State has made a pretty good trend over the past few years of overachieving relative to the early season predictions on them. When you look at this team and what they bring back, how much different are the predictions for them if Mike Leach is still the coach?
Man, that's a great question. Considering what the league has coming back and in the West, I think that they probably would be like a pick to finish maybe fourth in the SEC West potentially. And as it stands now, I think that's going to have to be lower. I do wonder, and I haven't heard much, and I'm sure you guys talk about it all the time, what exactly is that offense going to look like? What are they looking to do there to kind of complement that defense? Because often, any defensive coordinator out there, you're going 3 and out, say 2 drives in a row, even 3 drives in a row. That changes a lot of what you're able to call and what you're able to do with your defense because of one position you're in as far as field position, but also just the amount of minutes you're putting onto your bodies out there. And I do wonder kind of how Mississippi State plans on attacking that, maybe more so than Ole Miss. We talk about it being different there at Ole Miss, but I don't think that no matter what, because, Lane Kiffin is an offensive coach, it's going to change very much what they're going to be doing offensively, whereas Pete Golding's probably going to have to go in there and more or less kind of mold himself to fit into that Ole Miss system.
Visiting with Brandon Marcello from 24/7 Sports, covers college football all over the country, specifically in the Southeast. Brandon, we're kind of getting to that time of the year where everybody writes a story, or lots of people write stories. We're like, okay, this is the biggest question for every team in the SEC, or emerging storylines. I'm curious, as you think about it, as we get, a little bit closer, 4.5, 5 months away from the start of the season, give me 2 or 3 of the storylines that you think really are going to dominate the offseason and are going to stand out as we roll into the 2023 campaign.
Just with the SEC? Yeah, I think is one for me is, can Tennessee prove that this wasn't necessarily a flash and pan type season? I think, to me, that it wasn't. That's going to be a consistent thing they can keep up because of that offensive system that they have there with the veer and shoot. And not to say it's unique, but it's a system that my colleague Bud Elliott actually broke down pretty well today, about how, that's such a small, tight-knit group with the air raid, but also that version of the air raid, that a lot of coaches try to replicate it across college football, but they can't because it's very secretive in how they do things in game and adjustments. And I think Tennessee's kind of, they hit a home run there with Josh Heupel, but secondly, that offense is set up to be very successful, and that defense should get better this upcoming season. So can Tennessee, I guess long story short, can Tennessee maybe be that program in the SEC more so than Alabama or even Texas A&M or LSU that is the one that unseats Georgia this year and keeps them from winning another SEC title and winning a 3rd straight national championship, to be the first to do so? And then also,
hold on, Brandon, before you go to anything else. I want to follow up on that. I don't know that I've heard anybody describe that as veer and shoot. And then you said the secretive nature. So who are the coaches that are in that group? I mean, Josh Heupel, obviously, we're talking about at Tennessee. Is that Josh Heupel, Scott Frost, and who am I not thinking about that I should be?
It's the Art Briles system. There's only a very small group of guys that have really been able to crack that code and get into it. A lot of these guys, they don't even do like coaching conventions, and when they do, those rooms are loaded up with coaches. In fact, about a year ago, I remember Tennessee had a room set aside at the AFCA convention, and there must have been like 500 coaches in a room that held 300. It was literally shoulder to shoulder, and you're listening to it, and you're seeing them break stuff down, but he's also not telling you what was going on in the motion, what was the thing that the quarterback saw, what are they teaching the receivers before the snap, what are they actually reading. They don't go into the details there and those in-game type of adjustments that they depend on the players to make, but also that the coaches are making from the sidelines. And it's a little bit different across the sport. And you go talk to any coaches out there that try to replicate it, they'll tell you the reason why that system is not catching on in the NFL, or it's not catching on all that much across college football, is because you can replicate it, but you're not going to get exactly what they've got at Tennessee, or for that matter previously at Baylor with Art Briles, or even at Arkansas previously with Kendall Briles, as he brings that now to TCU. There's only a handful, and that's by design, because Art Briles told his guys when they were developing that system back in the late 90s and early 2000s, this is our thing. This is our baby. We're going to be the caretakers of it. We're not going to go spread this out everywhere and plant seeds everywhere. This is our baby. This is how we're going to be successful at a place like Baylor.
That's a really interesting story. Last thing, and we're 30 seconds left. Does Jeff Lebby fall into that category, now the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma that was – okay.
Yes, very much so, and I think that's one where at OU is going to be working out very well once they get the type of talent they need to utilize it and be successful there. But I think OU is a system not a system away, but they're a couple recruiting classes away from getting back in that top 5 conversation, for that matter, right in time when they join the SEC.
Just as they come to the SEC. Brandon, great stuff today. Thanks for your time. We'll catch